I love intricate heists. They're at the center of some of my favorite movies, TV shows, and yes, comic books. But what if I told you that the character of Howard the Duck was stolen from Marvel Comics almost 2 decades ago and nobody noticed? And the plan was brilliant. Welcome to Comic Misconceptions, a show that takes you into detail about the things you think you know about comics. I'm your host, Scott Niswander, and Howard the Duck has made a recent splash again in the media thanks to something that I'm not going to spoil for anybody, but I probably just did by insinuating that it was a spoiler. Look, I gave you guys like a couple weeks. Just yell at me in the comments. And in this video, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite stories from behind the scenes of comic books, the time that Howard the Duck was stolen from Marvel. Before we get started though, a quick heads up, I will be talking about characters that could be considered a little more obscure than normal. So to make it as simple as possible, I'm going to just not touch on anybody's backstory because that could take one forever. I could be here all day, but also that would be a little bit more confusing than we need. You really just need to know names and like what people look like, which we'll show you pictures. We're just gonna simplify our lives so we can enjoy the wonderful story of the great Howard the Duck heist. Howard the Duck is a Marvel character that was created in 1973 by Steve Gerber and Val Merrick. He's a walking, talking duck from a planet known as Duck World, which exists in an alternate dimension, which is similar to ours, except that ducks evolved into be the dominant intelligent form of life. He is also mainly synonymous with the 1986 Lucasfilm movie of the same name, of which critics are saying it really is that bad. But it's important to note that if you create a Marvel comic book character, it doesn't matter how much work you put into it, Marvel owns it, not you. So it wasn't long until co-creator Steve Gerber had a conflict with Marvel about who owned the creative rights to the character. To fund his lawsuit against the comic book giant, Gerber went to Image Comics, which is a publication for creator-owned comics, and created Duke the Destroyer Duck. Ultimately, the rights of Howard the Duck did go to Marvel, and Steve Gerber stopped working for them altogether. We now jump to the year 1995, when Steve Gerber hadn't really written a Howard the Duck story or even a Destroyer Duck story in many moons. He was actually getting ready to reintroduce Destroyer Duck into the comic books when he got a call from Marvel asking if he wanted to do another Howard the Duck story. This time he would be teaming up with Spider-Man. Gerber enthusiastically replied, no. You see, he was worried that the Spider-Man Howard the Duck crossover comic book would overshadow the Destroyer Duck Savage Dragon crossover comic book that he was hoping to soon put out. But Eric Larson, the creator of Savage Dragon, coaxed Gerber into it by offering the idea that it would all be one giant crossover. So Spider-Man and Howard the Duck would cross over here at Marvel, and then Savage Dragon and Destroyer Duck would cross over here, and then they would all meet together in one giant crossover. Neither one of them thought that Marvel would actually agree to this, but they did. And Gerber went on to write an awesome crossover that crossed between 2 different comic book publishers. Sounds exciting, right? Well, here's where the problems start to set in. Gerber caught wind that after his triumphant return to Howard the Duck, Marvel would sanction other stories involving the character to be written by other people. Gerber was furious that Marvel would just use him to bring the character back onto the shelves, only then to dump him for other writers. So he and Larson came up with a genius idea to steal back the character of Howard the Duck using the very comic book that Marvel asked for. So in the comic book crossover event, the villain of the story is Melf, aka the elf with a gun. It's an elf with a gun. Don't question too much about it. In the Marvel comic book, Melf goes to the home of another Marvel villain known as Ringmaster. He uses a hypnotic disc on his top hat to mind control people. Melf shoots Ringmaster to steal this hypnotic disc, but he doesn't grab it, and instead it's sent to evidence when the police show up to the crime scene. But there was a shipping error in evidence, and the hypnotic disc was sent to Chicago to Savage Dragon in the Image universe. Melf calls Dragon and asks him to meet him in a warehouse in Cleveland and deliver the disc. Dragon agrees under the condition that he can bring Duke the Destroyer Duck along. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, Howard the Duck and his girlfriend Beverly are planning on going to a circus, the same circus that Spider-Man came to Cleveland to investigate due to the Ringmaster being shot. The same circus that takes place in a warehouse that Melf asked Savage Dragon and Duke to come to. So you can kind of see how everything is coming together now. They're all at this one warehouse. The conflict plays out pretty much the same in both comic books, just from different perspectives, except one thing. In the Savage Dragon Destroyer Duck comic book, Duke and Howard bump into each other and notice that they're both ducks. This prompts Melf to start spawning hundreds and thousands of anthropomorphic ducks inside of this warehouse. In the chaos, everybody gets away and kind of goes their separate ways, but here's the brilliance of it all. In the Marvel comic book, we see that Spider-Man leaves the warehouse with Howard and Beverly, but in the Image comic book, we see that Duke grabbed the real Howard the Duck and says that Spider-Man actually took off with a clone. Dragon and Duke whisk Howard away to the Image universe where he dyes his feathers, changes his clothes, and enters the Witness Protection Program under the assumed name of Leonard the Duck. Let me just explain it again really quickly in case you're not understanding how genius this actually is. So characters from the Image universe go to the Marvel universe, take Howard the Duck back to the Image universe, leaving a clone in his place. So that means that after this story in 1996, every appearance of Howard the Duck afterward has been a soulless clone. That is amazing. Steve Gerber took back the character that he fought so hard for, and Marvel likely didn't even notice. Then in 2008, Steve Gerber died, probably from laughing so hard at what he just accomplished. Since then, Marvel has not gone back to take the real Howard the Duck from the Image universe, probably because they don't accept it as canon. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy this story, but I want to know what you guys think about it. Is this an awesome, sweet heist, or maybe, in your opinion, does it not count and Howard the Duck is still in the Marvel universe? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you liked what you saw, please subscribe. We do comic book videos just like this every Wednesday. We don't want you to miss out on any of it. And why not go check out the NerdSync podcast? This week we interviewed Eris Quinones from Variant and found out that he's just the coolest guy. So go check that out on iTunes, Stitcher, and right here on YouTube. Once again, I'm Scott. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll see you right here next week for more things that you thought you knew about comics. See ya. Peter is outraged, and rightfully so. He had gone his whole life believing in alien life only to be ridiculed, and now that he finally has proof, he's still treated like garbage. So he decides to take the mantle of Star-Lord by force. A lot of force. He gets cornered and the guards all shoot at him in unison. When the smoke clears, they believe that the lasers have vaporized Peter Quill out of existence. But that is not the case. The moment they shot at him was the same moment that a Star-Lord had to be chosen.